séance. Bienvenue à la réunion numéro 6 du Comité permanent des anciens combattants.
Welcome, everyone. I call the meeting to order. Welcome to this meeting of the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs. We are meeting to continue our study on suicide prevention among veterans.
I would like to provide a trigger warning. We will be discussing experiences related to suicide and grief. This may be triggering for viewers with similar experience. If you feel distress or need help, please advise the clerk. For all witnesses and our Member of Parliament, it is important to recognize that these are difficult discussions, so let's try to be compassionate in our conversations. So I would like to welcome our first panel today. Thank you for joining us. The next hour will look like this, so I will start by giving each of you 5 minutes to present their opening remarks. Once that is finished, I will recognize different members of the committee to ask questions and follow-ups to all of you. We also know that this subject may be very difficult, so please, if you need to take a pause, if you need for us to suspend, I'm very capable, and that's one attribute that I can do. I can allow you the time to have, so please let us know. I really want to say also thank you for sharing your experiences and your insights with us. So I will now introduce to our Member of Parliament the panel that we have here today for the first hour. As individuals, Mrs. Sherry Helms and Margaret Simons, Transition Trainer, Canadian Armed Forces Transition Group. And from the Homes for Heroes Foundation, Mr. Bradfield, President. Mrs. Helms, you may begin with your opening remarks, and the floor is yours for about 5 minutes, please. Merci. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sherry Helms, and I'd first like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to this committee on the topic of suicide prevention among veterans. I would submit to you that suicide prevention in any military setting must involve families, and in fact, the duty of care is owed in service-related deaths. I hope that my story may help you understand this. Almost 11 years ago, my husband, Brad Helms, died by suicide. At the time, he was a serving member of the Canadian Armed Forces, having served 11 years 34 years in the infantry. Brad's death was deemed to be service-related. It was linked to his service in Somalia from December of '92 to May of '93, and was exacerbated by multiple tours, including time in the former Yugoslavia, Haiti, Afghanistan, as well as multiple shorter periods in various non-SDAs around the world. 1992 was a long time ago. That means he lived with an operational stress injury for over 20 years. He struggled with depression and various other complaints such as memory loss, seizure-like activity, and anxiety. He was extensively medically investigated, looking for a cause. After he died, I reviewed his chart. I found a referral from the medical officer to the psychiatrist. It simply began with the word help. She didn't know what to do. I found post-deployment scans where he indicated that he struggled with nightmares and anger control issues. I found a psychiatrist report where she demanded that he bring me in. He simply stopped attending and was lost to follow-up. In the last 3 months of his life, things became so difficult that our marriage crumbled. He was under the care of a psychologist during that time, his last appointment occurring just 1 week before he died. In the coroner's report, this same psychologist rated Brad's mood at 4 out of 5 and attributed his distress simply to the breakdown of his marriage. Despite the breadcrumbs scattered throughout his medical chart, it seemed no one seriously considered that his struggles were related to his service. In fact, nowhere in the chart was there evidence of the turmoil that was our family life. No investigation of anger control issues, no mention of suicidal ideation. Had they asked us, his family, we would have known better. In the aftermath of his death, it fell to me to fill in the blanks with the Board of Inquiry, with the ND, and with Veterans Affairs Canada. Both agencies found his death to be service-related. Was it preventable? I don't know. I have no idea. But what I do know is that from his record, it appeared that the cost of his service was never top of the diagnostic list. So he did not get the care he needed. Not included in those records was the effect his career had on myself and my 2 children. My children never knew a father not affected by service because they were both born after Somalia. My son was born during Somalia. They knew a father who, while at times was wonderful, became increasingly angry and short-tempered over his life. Without getting into too much detail, home was not a peaceful place. Each of us found our own way to navigate his moods and sometimes erratic behavior. Because he never recognized his own disease, my family never received mental health support from the military. In fact, he prevented any family involvement to protect the illusion that he was indeed okay. I wouldn't be deployable, and then I may as well be dead, were his exact words. At the time of his death, both my daughter and I were seeing a social worker, and after his death, all 3 of us were attending weekly individual sessions. I was initially told that these sessions could be covered by the Canadian Forces Member Assistance Program, as the personnel at the transitional unit, which was kind of housing me as they would house a military member in that transition period, they recommended I not change counselors at that time. It was too difficult. However, 6 months later, after incurring thousands of dollars in bills for therapy, I was told that this was an error. This was a miscommunication between the transition unit and the personnel at the Canadian Forces Member Assistance Program. We were not eligible for reimbursement. At this point, I stopped asking. Had we been in the VAC system, so to speak, this situation may have been avoided. In the 11 years since his death, VAC has never funded any of our therapy, except for the 3 years when I was one of the few lucky survivors who was accepted into the Veterans Rehab Program. I was then offered mental health support, but not because of the traumatic grief I had experienced, but to support me in my education journey. I finally had access to care in my own right, but for a very short time. I did, however, have to switch therapist to a VAC therapist to be eligible for care. When school ended, so did the mental supports. But I was still a widow of suicide, and I still, at that time, had a lifetime of trauma to unpack. That remains true to this day. My children are now adults with third-party medical benefits, and I have funding through the Canada Life Retired Federal Public Servants Plan, which is generous, $5,000 a year. But this generous support comes at a cost. When this plan was restructured years ago, it was promised to be cost neutral to both the Treasury Board and to retirees. It's my personal conviction and belief, I have no proof of this, but I'm suspicious, that to pay for expanded mental health services, a greater portion of medication costs have been offloaded to retirees, and funding for services like physiotherapy were decreased. Again, my impression is that the entire public service is now in effect subsidizing what VAC has determined to be service-related. The state of my family's mental health is directly attributable to my husband's service, and thus VAC owes us a duty of care in this regard. In summary, as a spouse and as a family, we spent decades living with an undiagnosed operational stress injury. Not only was he untreated, but we were untreated as well. Had the military recognized my right to health care as a spouse, I may have been better able to help him and perhaps prevent his death. When a soldier serves, the family serves. Not only did he deserve better, but we as his family did as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Helms. I would like now to invite Mrs. Simon for 5 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Margit Simon. Before I start, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to speak in front of you on this especially important and crucial matter.
Okay, sorry.
Mine is
Start. Okay. Good morning. My name is Margit Simon. Before I start, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to speak in front of you on this especially important and crucial matter. I would like to start with a few words about our son, Private Jason Renato Simon. He's our son, brother, grandson, nephew, cousin, friend, soulmate, comrade, classmate, and colleague. Jason is our second-born, as he would say, typically middle child, and as I would call him, our favorite middle child. He was born on October 10, 1995, and raised in Windsor, Ontario, where he completed his elementary and high school studies. Jason was unique in many ways since the early age. He was caring and loving. At the same time, he was following no one but his own ideas. He was never the top of his class, but exceeded in topics and subjects he really cared about. He was not afraid to speak his mind and would even argue with people if he knew or thought what they said or did was wrong. Jason was not afraid to do things his way. Once as a school project, he has climbed up on our house's roof with his guitar, cymbal, and sticks. His friend took a picture. Jason captioned that, "Stand up and scream." Since he was 4 years old, Jason wanted to be a frontline soldier. All parents' dream. But we knew there was nothing we could say or do to change his mind, nor did we want it to. Jason was very loyal to his family, friends, comrades, and colleagues. Of course, it does not mean he would not give us a hard time here and there, as any young child would do. Nothing out of the ordinary, though. You see, he's not perfect, but he's perfect for us. One of our favorite memories of Jason, after his first communion, Jason and two of his friends put on sunglasses and posed for pictures as the Men in Black. They looked really sharp in their little suits and sunglasses. One year, when Jason was about 7, the kids were supposed to decorate the Christmas tree together. They did not know their dad turned on the camcorder. When we looked back at the recording, we saw Patty, our daughter, eating chocolate, our youngest, Patrick, is sleeping on the couch, and Jason happily dancing away and decorating the tree at the same time. We are a close family, and the kids were raised to understand the true meaning and value of the family. Jason loved to surprise us by driving all night from Ottawa to Windsor, so when we woke up, we would find him in his bed. It was always wonderful to have him home and spend time together. After graduating from high school, Jason moved to Ottawa to continue education at Carleton University. He was majoring in criminology, and his minor was history. He told us many times about how much he loves it here and how he enjoys meeting new people and have new experiences at the university and outside of it. He said he wished he could relive first-year university, as it was the best time of his life. In June 2015, his childhood dream came true when he took the oath to serve his country, first as a reservist with the Canadian Armed Forces. Jason wanted to graduate early from university so he can pursue his dream as full-time military member in the Canadian Armed Forces. The plan was he would graduate early in December 2016. He was based with the 30th Field Artillery Regiment, RCA, in Ottawa. Jason was well-liked and eager to learn. He was also volunteering at the base to restore old artillery guns. Since Jason loved history, especially World War I, volunteering was very close to his heart. With his regiment, they gave the gun salute at the opening of the Parliament in 2015. He was very, very proud of that. One of his comrades wrote, "Jason was always laughing, cracking jokes, and supported me. He is what made basic and patrol bearable." Jason was extremely outgoing. He loved nature, photography, and to travel. He was not afraid of new adventures. He traveled in North America and Europe. After graduating from high school, the English department took the student on a European trip. They had a blast. Before they left, parents had to sign a consent form that allowed the kids to have an alcoholic drink as part of the cultural experience. Jason took it seriously because they discovered in Europe you can buy different alcoholic beverages from vending machine on the street. We know he did not break any rules, but one of his friends happened to be the teacher's own son. Nobody got drunk or hurt, but let's just say the teacher was not impressed. He also would not leave London, England, without a top hat and the statue of David underwear in Florence, Italy. If you know the statue, then you can imagine the underwear. Jason loved snowboarding and longboarding and riding his bike. He did snowboarding for a couple of years before he found out in university he was doing it wrong. That did not matter, as he had a lot of fun anyway. He played the tenor saxophone for 5 years. He would also drum with anything that was at his hand. He loved music, but disliked practices. My family and other parents usually found out at special events that our children are skipping practice. How did we end up always at those parents at the same table is still a mystery to us. Jason loved music. He also had 23 or 24 tattoos. Each and every one of them had a special meaning to it, so they were not some silly last-second designs. On one of his military identification, they asked about tattoos, and to describe it, whoever filled it out said numerous, as it would have been impossible to write down all of them. He was our skinny mini living canvas. I called him Skinny Mini because he was very tall, towering over me, but at the same time very skinny. He also put on his ID, he is 5 feet tall. I asked him why he did not put his right height. He said, "Mom, I don't know how tall I am. All I know, I'm tall enough to ride roller coasters." His favorite animals were the polar bears. He wanted to educate people to protect the environment so these majestic animals can be saved. He also loved our pets, Trouble, our cat, and Cooper, our dog. And he fell in love with his adopted kitty, Socrates. Jason adopted him on the way home from the hospital on February 1st, 2016. He absolutely refused to go home without adopting a pet. Now we are raising Socrates. He's our grand kitty. He also loved to help people who were struggling, especially emotionally. He was like a magnet to those people and a sponge to soak up their pain. Jason helped his friends, students, or random people whom he thought could use a little bit of helping hand and someone who could listen to them. He even helped a couple of his high school teachers. One of them had cancer, and Jason tried to help her emotionally. They stayed connected until Jason's passing. One of their last conversations was about Jason's latest tattoo. At Jason's memorial service, people came to us to share how much they loved Jason, how much he meant to them. We heard many stories how Jason helped them through their emotional and mental health problems and issues. He never said no to anyone whom he thought needed a listening ear or a shoulder to cry on. A couple of quotes from his friends. Jason always had my back and always managed to bring a smile to my face. There isn't a single person I would have rather gone on our East Coast trip or to the one to BC we were planning. No way anyone could ever turn awkward silences to awkward laughs and smiles the way he could. Not a single person I could call a closer friend. Jason was one of the nicest kids I have met in my life. No words can describe what a nice, funny, caring guy you were. Having gained one of the most beautiful, caring and stubborn people I ever met. You pushed me to be a better person and always supported my endeavors, even if it was with a laugh. Jason's favorite food was pizza. He could eat it day and night. He also loved pumpkin pie with a drumstick ice cream on top, and buttered popcorn and Heineken beer. Jason loved to make funny and random voices. He made funny faces on almost every photo, including family photos. We used to joke that we will make a slideshow and play it at his wedding. Losing a child is heartbreaking, especially when there could have been help if someone would have listened, if someone would have believed Jason. Then maybe he could have received help he so desperately needed and begged for. He was full of life and had wonderful plans for his future. He wanted to be a Canadian Army officer. He wanted to live in a log cabin in the woods with lots of dogs. He wanted to travel the world. A couple of days before he passed away, he looked for a new car and actually found one he wanted to buy. It was a Mazda CX-5. And there were many other dreams that he could not fulfill in his young life. But we know he did live his life the way he wanted and to the fullest until his mental health condition took over. He has done more in his 20 years, 4 months, and 5 days than a lot of older people can say. Now we are left behind to pick up the pieces and to make sense of what happened, what went wrong, going through the what ifs and whys. Even though Jason wrote in his last note, "It is not our fault," we still live with self-blame and broken hearts. Some people say when they lose a loved one, there is a hole in their heart. It is not true for us. Our heart shattered into millions of pieces on that fateful and tragic day on February 15, 2016. But our love for Jason and our memories are keeping the pieces together very strong. Jason was taken from us in a terrible way, but he will be forever loved and remembered always. Now I would like to talk about our experience during Jason's last week of his life and at the time of his passing and the aftermath. We did not find out Jason was suffering until around January 27, 2016. When Jason called me to let me know he was put in handcuffs and was driven to the Kingston Hospital the day before. He was driving on Highway 401 and had suicidal thoughts, so he called for help. He was put in handcuffs as per safety procedure. He was released a couple of hours later when the police officer drove him back to his car and sent him home to Ottawa. The same night, Jason went to the clinic at the university, where an ambulance was called to bring him to the hospital. Again, he was released a couple of hours later. He went home and called me the following day to tell me what happened. I told him I will drive to Ottawa, as we still lived in Windsor at the time, but Jason said he's feeling better, and he was coming home anyway soon for reading week. On January 29, 2016, his soulmate, Brianne, contacted me and said I should come to Ottawa because Jason attempted to take his life. I drove right away and was able to see him in the hospital that night. I was sitting with him all day the following 2 days, and I was there when he was released after 72 hours mandatory holding. He did not want to be released, as in the 72 hours, not one doctor was talking to him. Jason was in the emergency mental ward all the time. I asked the doctor, why is he releasing him? When Jason kept saying he's not well. The doctor said Jason just needs to follow up with his counselor and doctor. I asked if the doctor can guarantee that Jason will not attempt to take his life again. The doctor's answer was, Mrs. Simon, there is no guarantee in life. I was furious, but at that point, Jason wanted to leave when he saw there is nothing we can do. So on February 1st, 2016, he was sent home. The doctor did not even tell us what Jason used when he tried to take his life. All we knew, he tried to hang himself. The number one thing family and loved ones are told in suicide attempts to remove the tools that was or could be used. We removed everything that we could think of. We even took his roommate's scarves. But what we never thought of was the actual thing he used, the HDMI cable for his computer. On February 3rd, 2016, Jason reported to his base for duty. He told his chain of command what happened. They took action right away and drove Jason to the Montfort for assessment and help. Only to be told hours later that Jason is not entitled to any service or help, as he was only in the reserve forces. His chain of command tried everything, contacting authorities and getting any help for Jason, but it was all denied. At that point, Jason was put on 2 weeks leave without pay on the Montfort Hospital recommendation. Honestly, that is one of the worst things can happen to someone in Jason's condition. Keeping them home with nothing to do and not getting paid is not ideal, to say the least. Even though we supported Jason financially during his studies, he did not want to accept help and work hard to be able to support himself. He also needed to feel that he's contributing to his unit. It would not have mattered if it were something to do in the office or cleaning the floors. People like Jason need to be kept busy. Even after this experience, Jason told me the most help he got was from his chain of command and unit. His chain of command and some of his comrades are still in contact with my family and keep saying how they wish they could have done more to help Jason. We also been part of an inquest the coroner requested in Jason's death. The inquest was held in 2019, where many witnesses have been called from hospitals, Carleton University, Ministry of Health, CAF representative, Major Dr. Jennifer Purdy, retired, and many others. After the inquest, the jury accepted 37 recommendations. I have the Canadian Armed Forces response to the items addressed to them. It was provided to the committee. After Jason's passing, I was introduced to a program within the Canadian Armed Forces transition group called HOPE, helping our peers by providing empathy. HOPE was there for my husband and me during one of the most difficult times of our lives after our loss. What made the difference was not just the support, but the compassion. Speaking with someone who had lived a similar experience gave us comfort and reminded us we were not alone. Because of the impact it had on us, I became a volunteer for 2 years and later a program coordinator for 3 years. In those roles, I witnessed firsthand how HOPE provided bereaved military families with something invaluable: understanding, connection, and the strength to begin healing. For survivors, HOPE is not just a program, it's a lifeline. In my current role as a transition trainer with the Canadian Armed Forces Transition Unit, I have the privilege of walking alongside members as they prepare for life after service. Sadly, some of the people we support are carrying very heavy burdens, including mental health challenges such as PTSD. Their courage in the face of these obstacles is a constant reminder of the strength within our military community. What makes a difference, though, is the people I work with. The staff in our unit are compassionate, dedicated, and truly care about every member who comes through our doors. And their leadership has been a source of strength. They lead with humanity, vision, and heart. They're always ensuring we have the guidance, encouragement, support, and resources we need. They stand beside us, and because of that, we can stand beside those we serve. Having said that, in both the Canadian Armed Forces and in the civilian world, we still have a long way to go before we are where we should be. There is much work ahead of us, but it is a meaningful work, and it is work we must continue together. Thank you for listening, and get to know our Jason, so you can picture him as a real person and not as a number or statistic. We hope this study will help people understand how serious mental illness is, and it will help to produce not only recommendations, but positive and actual actions as well, so this tragedy will not happen to other people and families. Let this be our Jason's legacy. He just wanted to make this world a better place where people are kind and love each other. where we pay attention to one another, help those who are in need, even if by only taking the time to listen and talk to them. Tomorrow is Jason's birthday. He would turn 30 years old, but he's forever 20 years young. We will visit his memorial tree and plaque at Beechwood Cemetery, and we bring 20 red and 10 white roses. The red roses represent the birthdays Jason celebrated with us on Earth, and the white roses represent the birthdays since he left us. Sorry. I would like to finish with a poem. I miss your laugh, the sound so dear, the way you joked, the constant cheer. If I could have just one more day, I beg you, darling, please, please stay. I wish you back, but not in pain. I wish the rainbow, not the rain. And as Jason would say, whatever, forever. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Simon, for sharing Jason with us this morning. Mr. Field, for 5 minutes.
First of all, I want to apologize for my sniffles and coughing. Every time I come to Ottawa, I get allergy kicks in. So thank you, ladies, for sharing your very deeply personal stories. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Brad Field, and I have the privilege of serving as president of the Homes for Heroes Foundation. Our mission is simple but urgent: to support the men and women who have served our country by ensuring they have safe, stable housing and access to the resources they need to live with dignity and hope. This past week in Halifax, I had the honor of spending time with one of our trusted advisors, retired General Walt Natinjik. Knowing that I'd be speaking before you here today, we discussed the state of our veteran community, the struggles many face silently each day, and the devastating reality that far too many are losing hope. During one of our conversations, Walt shared a moment that has stayed with me. He recalled crossing paths with a young Canadian soldier in Afghanistan. As they spoke, the young soldier asked a question that cuts to the very core of why we're here today. Does anyone know I'm here? And does anybody care? That question is haunting. It is also sadly but not unique. Too many veterans return home asking the same thing. Do we see them? Do we care? At Homes for Heroes, we do. We believe that no veteran, no veteran should feel invisible in the country they served. We believe that safe housing, mental health support, and a community of care can be the difference between despair and recovery, between a crisis and a second chance. Veterans, veterans do not need our pity, they need our commitment. They need systems that don't just react to crisis, but work to prevent it. They need housing, access to mental health care, job training, and a connection to a community that reminds them every day that their service mattered and that they still matter. This is not an unsolvable crisis, but it requires leadership, collaboration, and sustained investment. Government, nonprofits, and communities must come together to build a safety net that no veteran can fall through. As a nation, we have a moral obligation to ensure that every veteran knows that they are seen, they are valued, and they are never alone. Our heroes answered the call to serve. It's now our duty to answer theirs with urgency, with compassion, and with resolve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Field. So for individuals who may be here for the first time, what we'll do is we'll just go along each member who will be asking about five minutes, 6 minutes on round one, actually. So if you're in the middle of a sentence, I'll let you finish, and then I may have to interrupt, and I'm urging my colleague to be direct with your questions so you can hear more about the people who are here in front of us. Mr. Tomey, for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for opening your hearts and sharing your testimonies. Normally when we come in, there's a line of questions that we have, but when we hear your testimonies, sometimes we have to change tact. So because we hear more about your personal stories. Ms. Elms, I'd like to start with you first. You mentioned something in your testimony. I believe that your husband said, "I won't be deployable. I might as well be dead." Could you please share a little bit more about that?
Sure, that was actually a direct quote. Actually, the whole quote is, "Sherry, you can't say the S word, because if you say the S word to the Army, I'll be undeployable, and then I may as well be dead." So these are the conversations that you have with someone that's teeter on the edge.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's why he wouldn't. The psychiatrist wanted to see me because it was probably 5 years before he died. He kept us from the system.
Right. Okay. So one of the things that we've kind of seen, and Ms. Simon mentioned it in her comments about one of his colleagues saying, or one of his comrades saying, "Jason always had my back." So one of the things that we see in the military, or we hear, that is the comrades, are supposed to have training and are supposed to recognize some of the challenges, and I'm thinking this is probably prior to your time, Ms. Elms, and what I'm saying is when you're in the military, as a veteran that I was, we go through training to recognize, but I'm thinking that when your husband was dealing with this was prior to the training that was being given, and so we have blind spots, and it's something that, you're dealing with someone that's got mental health issues. How is it recognizable? How did you, come to recognize, or did you recognize, or was it too late?
I am a pharmacist by profession, so I'm not unfamiliar with healthcare. I knew Brad was a super soldier. Another quote someone said to me, he was the type of guy that you put behind glass and hammer says break in case of war. Mm-hmm. He won an Ironman competition. The jaws dropped when he died by suicide. If it can happen to Elms, it can happen to anybody. Mm-hmm. But I knew, home life was awful. He was mean, and he had a temper, and he was erratic, and he would jump out of the car on the 401 and say, "I'm not going anywhere with you guys," with the kids in the van, and purport to walk home to Kingston. He was a super soldier, and he lied, and he was very good at it. There were 3 generals at the funeral. Their jaws were all on the floor. And his friends, in the last week of his life, watch out for Elms. He's going through a rough time. So.
Okay, so this is heartbreaking to hear. But you said that that you had difficulties trying to get care, like you were being shut out intentionally. So this is a problem for us, because we do believe that if you're part of a family unit, that you're also serving. So how was it that you were being shut out, that you couldn't get, did you find that out later, that you weren't allowed to go to the same counselor
The psychiatrist issue, he told me about at the time because, and his reasoning at that time was, I wouldn't subject you to that humiliation, because to him it was a humiliation. I told his commanding officer, I told his family doctor, because I work with family doctors in Kingston and I had a direct import to her. She said, there's nothing, we can't pull him in until we put you in an interval house or, make you safe. I'm like, I was the shunned wife at that point. He had left in July. He died in November. I'm competent. I'm eloquent. I can work at the healthcare system. And he was so good. He was a super soldier. Nobody listened. Having said that, there was a band of soldiers of that age. He would be 62 now if he were still alive. He died at 51. There's a band that were lost. Multiple deployments, like over Afghanistan, Somalia, Rwanda, the former Yugoslavia, like the churn. And you tamp down your humanity, and if you don't get it back, it's never coming back.
Okay. I do have more questions, and I'm sorry I'm going to run out of time, but Ms. Simon, I just want to say thank you for sharing your son's story and humanizing this for us, because from what I've heard from the testimonies today, these are real people that and just people that seem like they're so full of life, and to lose those lives, it's just touching. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tomey. For 6 minutes, Mrs. Erdl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, and thank you all for being here today and for sharing your stories with us. I know it's not easy. Ms. Simon, I feel like I know Jason. He sounded like a great kid. I'm wondering if we can switch gears a bit, Ms. Simon, and if you can give us some information about your role as a transition trainer and what are the things that you do to help veterans?
So we have different events and programs. In my role, we provide, it's called the Career Transition Workshop, where we prepare the members for employment after release, including self-assessment, job search, resume writing, and interview techniques. So it's very helpful because some of the members haven't written a resume forever or at all. So, and interview is totally different what they used to. So it's a very helpful tool for them. And we also have, it's called the My Transition Seminar, where our partners who are part of the release process are there to talk to the members in a seminar setting. And we provide all the contact information for them. So it's a one-stop shop kind of thing. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Earlier this week, we heard from the Veterans Transition Network about the work that they do, and they expressed concern on a range of issues and how they would like to be able to do more work to support veterans. I don't know if you're familiar with them. I expect you are.
Yes.
Wondering if, can you help us understand how an organization like yours and an organization like VTM maybe differ, and maybe how you're alike, and if what you do complements each other?
Yes. So they are the main level, and then they are branches. Okay. So if we are part of one of the branches. So the whole program was another branch from the transition group.
Okay, great. We've heard a great deal recently and today, of course, about the importance of support, both formal and informal. That comes from personal networks, but also other veterans going through similar challenges. Of course, that familiarity can promote support and paths forward. In your experience, how can those that are not directly related or are not directly familiar with the realities of life in the armed forces or life after the armed forces, how can they support friends and neighbors who don't have or perhaps don't have that firsthand experience?
That's a very good question. Yeah, it's a different life for sure. So it's not something that many people understand in the civilian world. So I would just say that just listen without judgment, and when you get some facts, some information, do the research. If you know that your neighbor or friend is struggling and they are in the military, they can reach out to the military if they see that there's something wrong.
Right.
Or, yeah, so they can get as much information as possible and reach out. And that would be the most important thing, because yeah, we are not professionals. We are able to listen and listen well, recognize their pain and suffering, but we cannot fix it. So this is why it's important to reach out to the right resources and bring attention to, let's say, if I know that, let's say, my neighbor is a part of the military, I probably would know where, then I can reach out. The public can reach out to the bases as well.
Right. Yes. That I never know if I'm. That was one of my questions. How do you know where the right place is?
It's
Yeah.
research.
Yeah, it is that, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, because if like in Jason's case, he wouldn't have tell you that, oh, this is my chain of command. Go talk to him. Like he wouldn't do that, but he would tell you where he was. Like he was with the 30th.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I would like to mention that in our unit we also have many different groups. So we have the transition advisors who are there to guide the member who's being released. We have the release section. We have service coordinators if it is medical release. So everybody has their own area of expertise. So again, our building is a one-stop shop for releasing members. If it's general release or medical, we are there for them.
Right. I'm sure Jason would be really proud of the work that you're doing.
He better be.
I'm sure he is. Am I good? Do I have a minute? Okay, one more minute. So in that vein of not being familiar, how important is knowing the right vocabulary, the right terminology, to be able, so that they understand that you can relate? Or
Yeah, they have a different language for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Because I'm struggling as a civilian to understand this. Sometimes I was like, can you please speak in English? Because so I understand. Yeah, it can be a challenge, but once you get to know them, it's okay.
Right. It's building trust, isn't it?
Good. Oh, that is very important. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madame Gaudreau, pour 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
6 minutes, Ms. Gaudreau, please. Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me start by saying thank you. It's never easy. One revisits the suffering, and I really thank you for your courage in doing so. My question is going to be just so simple, because I want to leave you room to answer as you wish. We have a new Prime Minister. We have a new Minister of Veteran Affairs. You are heard, listened to, and seen. So I would like to leave you with a few moments here and now to share anything specific that you may wish to here in testimony. I want to leave the space to you so that we could add whatever you have to say to our report to help us all have hope. I'm not sure who would like to begin.
Although there's been great successes and changes in Canadian Armed Forces, the formation of Transition Center has been fantastic, but there's lots of work to be done. Culturally, we have to change within the Canadian Armed Forces. We heard stories, obviously, this morning of not being listened to, not being acknowledged. We find quite often at Homes for Heroes what we're seeing when we have our veteran residents come in who've been on the streets sometimes upwards of 10 to 15 years, living rough, living at risk every day, that navigating, for a simple thing as navigating Veterans Affairs is insurmountable. I beg to say that, you know, as much as we can make cultural changes within the Canadian Armed Forces, we could look at changing how we operate Veterans Affairs. And just so we're clear, Veterans Affairs caseworkers, the staff, fantastic. When you can get through to them, they're fantastic. So not taking away from the hard work that's done every single day, but I beg to say if you've got some free time or an hour or two, try navigating Veterans Affairs website. Make the assumption that you're a veteran looking to get benefits. I beg to say, I'll bet you $1 million that you'd give up in 2 minutes. We've had stories where, I can tell a very quick story, a veteran living on the streets in Edmonton, 10 years living at risk, fight or flight every single day, found his way to Homes for Heroes. Within 2 weeks, our caseworkers, because they're experts, and you really have to be an expert to navigate Veterans Affairs, found out that he had in excess of $250,000 in cash payout waiting for him, and it had been sitting there for over 10 years since he had left. He had a full military pension waiting for him, upwards of 7. He had been living on the streets at risk for 10 years. He now owns 2 homes. One he's renovating for himself, and one he's a landlord. So here's a perfect example of they don't know, and they need to understand that they have access to benefits and support. But navigating Veterans Affairs website is ridiculous. So I think we have to revamp that. And I would say the one cautionary insight I have is, although the caseworkers at Veterans Affairs are fantastic, they read from a textbook more often than not instead of listening from their heart. And so that could change. And that's not taking away the good work that they do every day. So thank you.
Pas beaucoup de temps, mais j'aimerais vraiment vous...
Not much time, but I would really like to hear you. What message would you like to share with us?
I will stand here as a representative of families, which is a little, it's kind of on the side, but it's not on the side. I will echo Brad's comments about navigating the Veterans Affairs website. And although the caseworkers are wonderful, as survivors, our needs are different, and the legislation around our benefits is different. And often it's subtleties that caseworkers that aren't dedicated to survivors don't get. We're told our earning loss benefits will be cut off when it doesn't get cut. So those types of things, and the churn, because as our kids age and go past 18 and then go out of the system, go back into the system for school, then go out and then go back into the system, getting benefits switched around is onerous. You need to be an expert. And as my husband is not here because of his service, and I shouldn't have to be an expert to navigate getting care.
Merci. Quelques mots, il me reste...
Thank you. There are 30 seconds left, perhaps, to you, Ms. Simon.
Message. Juste un message.
Just a message for us.
Okay. All right. So we must openly talk about suicide. Continue. Talking about it is not going to make anybody suicidal. It's not contagious, but it's really important. Also, it would be important to accurate documentation of cause of death in the military, because our son's death was documented as unknown, and I had to fight to change it. We should not be hiding it. It's something that is there. Not talking about it, not going to make it go away. The addressing stigma and mockery. Some people still call others who go see therapists on base, that they call it the walk of shame. These people who make comments like that or joke and make fun of people should be not just put in a course to take a course and check mark, but maybe make them do volunteer work in this capacity. And yeah, so these are the one. And I actually just have a quick question. So female veterans It's 2 times more than in the general population, and male veterans 1.4 times more to die by suicide or attempt suicide than in the general population. Younger male veterans, after release, in the first 2 years, they attempt suicide, while female veterans, it takes much longer. Is there any study being done on these statistics? And what resources are directed to further studying these statistics and investment in programs to tailor to prevention and resources in this case?
Mrs. Simon, I apologize. We're going to go to. So just because of the situation for panel number 2, what we'll do is we'll go through another rounds right now and we'll adjust accordingly. We have one person online and our other in-person are a little bit delayed. So we'll continue, if that's all right, with our panelists because it is past 9:15. I want to make sure that you are available to stay and comfortable to stay. Okay. Donc, we will go for 5 minutes for, I think, Mr. Richards. Thank you very much.
Okay. First of all, thank you, in particular, Sherry and Margit, for your courage in coming and sharing your personal tragedies with us today, because that's the only way we're going to learn how things can be better. And to you, Mr. Field, as well, for the work that you do to serve the veterans who slip through the cracks. And I hope I'll get a chance to ask you a little bit more about that. But I wanted to start with you, Sherry, if I can. I've got 2 questions for you. I think I'll start with this one. You mentioned in your opening remarks about having, in order to get benefits from VAC for your supports that you needed for mental health and therapy and that kind of stuff. You've mentioned that you had to switch therapists in order to be able to do that. This is the kind of thing I hear far too often, and I think it kind of goes back to what Brad was saying about the folks at Veterans Affairs having to work from a textbook rather than from their hearts. And I really think, my perspective is we need to see more of a client-focused rather than a process-focused situation at Veterans Affairs, and the ability to be able to work with the providers that work for you or for your family. So I wanted to just get your perspective on that. Mentioning that you had to switch therapists in order to get that benefit, what difference would it have made for you had you been able to stick with who you were working with, and how important is that for someone to be able to have that continuity with someone instead of having to change service providers just to be able to fit into a box?
Well, I didn't change, so I paid.
You weren't able to, so you had to pay.
In the direct aftermath of his death, I stayed with Peter. This was the social worker my daughter had been going through for 4 years, me for probably 4 months. This is the man who sat in my home for 2 days after Brad died, just in case we needed him. I was not leaving him to go to virtual care through the CF map.
Okay, so
in healthcare, funding never follows the patient. It's not just mental health.
Yeah.
The funding needs to follow the patient in healthcare. Period. Full stop.
So bottom line is, let you work with the providers that are meant that you need to work with in order to get the help you need, and not prescribe that this is a process we have to follow.
I'm going to call the 188 number, and I'm going to get 10 sessions with this, I'm sure, wonderful counselor on the other side of the phone. I'm sure.
Yeah.
But not mine, not Peter.
Understood. Okay. No, I appreciate that. And then I guess I'll ask you as well. It seems like often this is the kind of thing we hear that, like, not that the services are all there that are needed for the the serving member or for the veteran, but it seems like for the families it's even less accessible. What would your recommendations be to us to make sure that families have the support they need, whether it be while the member is serving, while the veteran is with us, or if it's a surviving family members. What's your recommendation?
There's so many ways to slice and dice the situation, so I'll just take my situation. My husband died of service-related death as determined by DND and Veterans Affairs Canada. I get an income replacement benefit. I had an education benefit, all in my own right, passed to me. I should have been locked into the Veterans Affairs system for mental health services. The psychologist I see now bills Veterans Affairs for her retired veteran services. She should be able to bill for me.
Okay, thank you.
Period.
If I have some time? 1 minute. Okay, Mr. Field. When it comes to homeless veterans, I mean, obviously this is an area you know well, and I think these things are tied together often, unfortunately. And it seems like, I mean, it starts with the fact that, Veterans Affairs doesn't even seem to really be able to tell us how many homeless veterans there are. But your organization is there and kind of helps those veterans that sort of slip through the cracks at Veterans Affairs. I wondered if you could tell us, why do you think it is that so many homeless veterans seem to slip through the cracks?
Yeah, well, just to recognize, too, the data that Veterans Affairs is using around homeless veterans, I believe it's 2 to 2,500 homeless veterans in Canada, dealing from a 2021 census study door to door. Typically, you don't find homeless veterans living in a house when you're doing a door-to-door census. However, that being said,
So what you're saying is you think it's vastly underreported.
Yeah, we have an updated report from McGill University, a study that was done back in 2023 that says it's 10,000 plus. Veterans don't self-identify. They don't stay in shelters. They either live in vehicles, couch surf, or in their own encampments. So that being said, they're slipping through the cracks because we don't recognize, because we have a VAC website or a VAC system that isn't conducive to helping our veterans. But we have an opportunity here. I mean, these discussions are why we're here. We're looking to make changes. So, and again, I don't believe that anybody who's involved in VAC or anybody at this table or our current government or past governments are doing it with malice. It's through lack of knowledge and lack of willingness to change and bureaucracy. Again, we work in 4-year election cycles. So, every time we've got a new Veterans Affairs minister. I just met with her. She's a wonderful lady. But she's going to spend the first year or two getting up to speed. And then an election happens. Here we go again. And a new Veterans Affairs minister. So, again, we need to recognize that we need to make changes and make them long-term wise, regardless of who's in power. Regardless of what political party is at the helm, these changes need to be put in place and kept in place so we can bank on it going forward.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Mr. Field. Last 5 minutes, Madame Auguste, and after we'll pay our goodbye to all of you. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I would like to begin by thanking Ms. Elms and Ms. Simons for their very touching testimony, and thank you all for being here today. Mr. Field, I would like to thank you as well, you and your team, for the work that you carry out that has immense value.
For Heroes, pardon.
Homes for Heroes provides more than housing. It also provides group therapy, individual consultations, and programs that are managed by VAC. Could you tell us a bit more about all the types of assistance you offer to veterans?
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, we believe our program, and that's why we call it a program, is more than just homes. We always say that the 4 walls and a roof are the easy part of the equation. And again, providing someone with safe, secure, stable housing is a start, but really it's the program at the end of the day. And whether it's mental health, addiction, issues, PTSD, job training, life skills. A lot of our veterans have gone from a 2-parent household, graduated high school, went straight into serving in the military, went and served their country for 2, 3, 4, 10, 15 years, and they've never cooked or cleaned a house on their own. So they're, could be 30, 40 years of age, come out of the military, have never washed their own clothes or prepared a meal on their own. So it's stuff like that. financial literacy, job training, as I said. We have programs that set up with national partners where they will take our veterans and train them to work in their field. And so very supportive that way. I'm going to take this opportunity to also digress here off on a little tangent. I'll be very quick. I think Veterans Affairs has to look at their cannabis policy currently right now related to veterans. We have an epidemic of cannabis use within the veteran population, which the taxpayers' VAC is funding last year. $250 million was spent supplying cannabis to our veterans. And I'm not taking away that there is some veterans that do need cannabis use for their PTSD and trauma and so forth. But what we're doing here is we're turning a bunch of our veterans into potheads, unproductive, and in some cases drug dealers, because the quantities that we're allowing our veterans to use is way more than they need, if they even need it at all. And they now sell that cannabis that taxpayers have funded, and they sell it on the black market to earn an extra living. So they say in 2025 we'll be north of $300 million, and by 2028 we'll be $500 million that VAC is paying for cannabis to our veterans. So I think we should also take a look at that too as well, because it's not solving anything at this point. So thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup. J'ai cru qu'on...
Thank you very much. I think I understood from you as well that you work with Housing and Infrastructure Canada and the Department of Veterans Affairs works with them as well. What could we do to reduce red tape to ensure that we accelerate the application and the use of new programming for veterans?
I'm sorry, you missed it. Was that directed at me? My apologies. Again, navigating any government website is difficult at the best times. And again, good people working within VAC, within infrastructure. CMHC has been a wonderful component of our builds and so forth across many villages. But again, I think we should concentrate our efforts on not just building affordable housing in general, let alone for veterans. I think we have to consider a stronger stance on programming. Because, again, without the support of a programming, all you're supplying at the end of the day is a roof and four walls. So I think we can expedite the process by creating a little bit more of a streamlined process. And I would strongly suggest that in some cases that you're assigned kind of a concierge type service rather than jumping from department to department or person to person. Assign one person to that case file, whether it's Veterans Affairs or it's Homes for Heroes applying for more funding. Assign a single person to that, a concierge type service, because what we end up doing is we end up re-navigating, teaching the caseworker or the file handler. In that particular case, it's not a very efficient way of doing business as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, a concierge type service would be advantageous for everybody.
Merci
Parfait.
beaucoup,
Merci
Madame
beaucoup.
Auguste. Well, this would conclude first hour with all of you. On behalf of all of us, I would like to say thank you for joining us. I think, Mr. Field, thank you, but I feel a little bit more connected with your former husband, Brad, and certainly Jason. Mrs. Simon, thank you for sharing the story of your son. On this, that will conclude. And again, merci beaucoup d'être venu avec nous ce matin. Nous allons suspendre pour 2 minutes.
We will suspend for 2 minutes.
Donc, j'aimerais
I would like to invite all of us to our MPs to return to their seats. Thank you very much. We will continue with the second hour of our discussion.
introduce our second panel. As individual, Mrs. Ashley Thompson by video conferences et du Centre d'excellence sur la douleur chronique pour les vétérans.
And from the Chronic Pain Center of Excellence for Canadian Veterans, Captain Hélène Le Seigneur, retired, Vice Chair Advisory Council for Veterans of the Center for Excellence. Hello and welcome. Welcome here with us today. Here is how we will proceed. You will have 5 minutes each for your opening statements, and then parliamentarians, MPs here present, will follow up on your testimony. If you experience any difficulty, if you would like us to suspend briefly, please let me know. It will be my pleasure to do so. We are not in a rush. We're here to hear you. Thank you.
Mrs. Thompson, to begin your opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
You can, I think for a brief moment we lost you. You are back,
Okay.
so please stop.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam Chair. So good morning. My name is Ashley Thompson, and I'm a serving member of the Canadian Armed Forces, as well as a widow of a veteran who died by suicide on September 27th, 2022. My late spouse served this country with honor and pride. He deployed 4 times throughout his career and spent more time away from the home than with our family. Together, we have 5 children who looked up to their dad as a hero, a man who was always willing to put the needs of others and his jobs before his own. But the battles he fought overseas and abroad were not only the ones he faced. The invisible wounds he carried, the trauma, the operational stress, and the lasting pain of a sexual assault he endured while serving changed him. Over time, those wounds deepened, and the weight of them became too heavy to bear. He was scared to speak up about his mental health because he'd feared losing his job, his identity, and the pride that he took in being a soldier. He would cringe every time anyone would mention help. As his mental health declined, so did the sense of purpose and belonging that had once defined him. There were no warning signs and opportunities for help that came too late. A board of inquiry was completed after his death, yet crucial information is still missing, including one of his deployments and all the records of remedial measures he faced during his downward spiral. Despite all of this, Veterans Affairs Canada continues to classify his death as non-service related. I can tell you without hesitation, he was not this man before he joined the forces. His struggles, his pain, and ultimately his death were directly consequences of his service. The morning he took his life, he left for work in uniform, spent his morning at work. Captain and the warrant officer reported during the BOI that he was not himself. Michael stated he was stressed with me gone away for course and having 5 children. Told the warrant he had a mental health meeting at 13:30. He returned home for that meeting, and at 12:25, he took his life in our home in uniform with our personal weapon and with me on FaceTime. He used CIFMAP, the Canadian Armed Forces Member Assistance Program, to keep it anonymous so that the Canadian Armed Forces would not find out and he could keep his job and deployment status, as that was his life as a soldier, to deploy and to serve his country. This approach has halted the documentation process required by Veterans Affairs Canada to determine whether the death was service-related, so no information has been properly recorded or reported. As a current member of the Canadian Armed Forces, I have been fortunate enough to receive mental health support through the CAF system. But as his widow, my children and I have received no meaningful support from Veterans Affairs Canada. More than 3 years later from his death, I am still waiting for a decision, still waiting for acknowledgement, and still waiting for help. This is not just my story. It is the story of many families who have lost someone they love to the battle that continued long after a deployment. We cannot ask our members to give everything to their country and then abandon them or their families when the cost of that service becomes too great to bear alone. I am here today to speak for my spouse, for our children, and for every family who has been left behind. We owe it to them to ensure that no one else is left fighting for acknowledgement, for support, and for the dignity after giving their all to service to Canada. Thank you.
Mrs. Thompson, I'm very sorry for your loss, and thank you for your courage to be with us this morning. J'aimerais maintenant donner la parole à Madame.
I would now like to recognize and give the floor to Captain Hélène Lecière, retired, for 5 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair, honorable members of the committee. I do thank this committee for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I'd like to begin my testimony by echoing the discussion held here on Thursday, October 2nd. Several speakers highlighted the complexity of suicide and the difficulty of identifying a single cause of it. This uncertainty makes prevention all the more difficult. But I'd like to put forward a hypothesis. What if we are not yet approaching the issue from the right angle? As we know, psychological suffering is often at the heart of the act itself, but this suffering doesn't arise of its own accord. It comes to life at the intersection of several realities, personal, social, and institutional, which, taken together day by day, eventually become unbearable. Coming first and foremost to mind is chronic pain, an invisible, persistent, and often misunderstood form of suffering. The 2024 report on suicide mortality in the CAF identifies physical health conditions as one of the 3 main occupational and personal stressors associated with suicide. A Canadian study carried out in 2014 had already identified physical health as a factor contributing to suicidality. Physical health isn't separate from mental health. It's an essential component of it. I would have liked Dr. Ramesh Zacharias, President and CEO of the Chronic Pain Centre for Excellence for Canadian Veterans, to be here today, because this link between physical and mental health is one of our national research priorities directly related to suicide prevention among veterans. Beyond physical pain, though, lies an even more silent form of suffering, moral injury resulting from institutional betrayal. MP Richards alluded to this on Thursday when he mentioned the concept of sanctuary trauma. I refer here to pain that arises when the institution in which one has vested one's loyalty, identity, and integrity itself becomes a source of pain. Recent Canadian research, notably that of Nazarov and colleagues 2023, finds that moral injury and institutional betrayal are major determinants of psychological distress and suicide risk among veterans. Listening to last week's testimonies, I noticed that responsibility is still too often placed on the people suffering, veterans and their families, rather than being shared by the institutions tasked with the duty of care to them. My own transition out of the forces led me to experience this sense of betrayal. I'd served with conviction and worn the uniform with pride. I was wounded in service during my mission in Afghanistan. After I returned to civil life, I felt that the organization that had shaped me had turned its back on me. This emotional wounding led me to the brink of suicide. I've already testified to this before you, and I say it again today. The feeling of abandonment linked to institutional betrayal can be as devastating as war trauma. Institutions that should protect military personnel, RCMP members, and veterans sometimes become, despite themselves, the very source of members' distress. Trauma-informed approaches, although recognized to be essential, are implemented all too slowly. Too often, veterans in distress are threatened with losing their benefits if they don't comply with dehumanizing administrative requirements, and these repeat institutional microaggressions fuel emotional pain instead of soothing it. Allow me to illustrate this form of institutional betrayal with a real-life, profoundly shocking example. The silhouette of my head, my rank, and my name have been used on 2 permanent memorial installations where, along with 11 other living people, I appear as having made the ultimate sacrifice. These monuments, there's evidence to show it, were funded by Veterans Affairs Canada. Imagine what that means, seeing your own name engraved in stone as someone who has died in combat. Imagine what that does to the psyche of an already fragile veteran and those of their loved ones. This situation, as unbelievable as it is unacceptable, has been ongoing for over a year now. Despite our repeated efforts, there has been no support, no apology, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing. The only solution proposed was to remove the monuments, thereby erasing the memory of true heroes whose names deserve to be there. Some members of the group affected by this situation have sunk into such deep distress that suicide has seemed like a way out. I ask you a simple question. How would you feel if, for over 2 years, your name were on a monument among those of the dead, while your comrades who did fall in battle were not even listed? It's a disgrace. It's also a betrayal by the institution. It's a moral wound that haunts us every day. An organization claiming to guard the well-being of veterans and their families cannot afford to remain silent in the face of such an injustice. It must act in a trauma-sensitive manner with true accountability, responsibility, and compassion. Because suicide prevention depends on more than mental health, you see. It begins with recognition, reparation, and basic respect for human dignity. If we truly intend to prevent suicide among veterans, we must acknowledge that physical and psychological suffering, moral injury, and institutional betrayal are intimately linked to it. Until we address these root causes, we will continue to lose lives that could have been saved. Thank you. Thank you very much, Madame Leseller and Mrs. Thompson.
Service. Nous allons maintenant passer.
We will now move into our question period. Mr. Richards.
No, I'm so sorry. I apologize. I have the wrong list. Mrs. Wagenthal for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Thompson, thank you so much for your bravery in being here today on behalf of yourself and your children. I hope that my questions don't harm you. If they do, please just let me know, okay? We recently did a study on a sexual assault of women in the military. And you mentioned here that part of the invisible trauma your husband experienced was due to sexual assault. Without knowing the details, do you feel that potentially all of this lack of reporting and lack of information might be related to that incident?
I can't speak for certainty because I found out about the sexual assault after death. He was never forthcoming with what happened within our relationship, and I had found the paperwork after the fact mixed within his certificates of his service in the military.
Okay, so the military was aware of this and it was during service?
Yes.
Okay, perhaps we need another study. The fact that there was no information available, you've mentioned information just now that you were able to find. How is it that the military could not assist in any way in providing you with the information needed for a proper report?
To be honest with you, the military never asked for any information throughout the BOI process. I have his shadow file that have all his remedial measures, the harassment that he was going through within his one unit here in Trenton. The CO and the chief were removed.
Mrs. Thompson, we seem to have technical difficulties, so I will stop our clock and maybe ask our technical support to reach out to Mrs. Thompson.
She might need to shut her video off.
No, your mic is on. Yeah. I will suspend for a few minutes until we solve this problem. I apologize, Madame le Seller.
Sorry, I
Miss-
was IT had
There you
called as
go.
well.
Yes, that's perfect. Mrs. Thompson, you are back with us. Thank you very much. And
Thank you,
sorry for
sorry.
those technical difficulties, especially when,
Zoom keeps kicking me out.
well, we will continue if that's okay with you.
For sure.
Perfect.
Sorry, ma'am, can you repeat the question?
Sure, I was basically asking about how you had that information and yet the armed forces didn't seem to have it. And you're talking about a shadow file.
Yes, so he kept his personal file with him because he deployed so often and was tasked out so often. So everything that would have been on his personal file, he had at home. So every initial counseling or recorded warning or paperwork that had to do anything with the military, his MPRR, so his military record,
Okay.
was all in this folder.
So can you explain to me why that wouldn't be considered enough information for the military to respond to or to have accepted as evidence?
They never asked. When I said I had it, they said that they pulled his personal file from the OR.
Okay, thank you. You also mentioned about the fact that you've gotten assistance through CAF because you're serving,
Right.
but as a widow and your children, you do not get any support from Veterans Affairs. The Ombuds was here, and she talked about this very issue that family members, when the member serves, they can get assistance if that member is willing to have them get that assistance. But regardless, if that individual who's serving passes away, all of that support is immediately cut off from the family. I can't think of a time when you would need those kinds of supports more than having lost that individual under whatever circumstances in their service were taking place. Can you speak to that at all?
For me and my children personally, I reached out to the children's mental health because the children still have benefits through me because I am still serving.
Okay.
But through, again, Canada Life, which is completely different than through any type of VAC benefits.
Right. Well, we're VAC,
They-
so let's talk about the potential through VAC.
Okay. They haven't received any through that. And for me, my children have gone through therapy without assistance from. So I have claimed all of their therapy through my own benefits through the CAF because for VAC, I don't qualify
Right.
for VAC benefits for the children because his death was deemed non-service related.
Boy, I can't get my head around that. I don't know how you get up in the morning and carry on, quite honestly, when you hear those types of things. So the duty of care and the responsibility of VAC for those family services aren't in place because of the legislation that controls what can and cannot be offered. So I know that you did have assistance through because of the fact that you do serve, but for others who are spouses and have children who wouldn't have that opportunity, I would like to hear whether or not you feel that's legislation that needs to be changed by government so that VAC can provide the care that families who serve along their members should receive.
Zoom doesn't like me. I apologize.
It's okay. Were you able to hear my question?
No, I wasn't, ma'am.
Okay. Am I out of time? Okay. Basically, I'm just wondering if the fact that legislation needs to take place to change the rules around the fact that VAC doesn't have the ability to provide services to spouses and children after that individual has passed away, if that should be changed. I know you're getting it through CAF, but for those that are not serving and are spouses and children who are owed that duty of care, do you feel that that should change?
I 100% agree that that needs to change. Even not a serving member, the families fight with the soldiers. They are part of the reason that soldier is where they are. They deserve to have the benefits to be able to care after the veteran has passed away, whether by suicide or in combat. They deserve to have the supports. They supported their member to fight for this country, and they need to have the supports. It should definitely be changed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Thompson. We'll now ask Mr. Casey for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to continue on with Ms. Wagenthal's line of questions, Ms. Thompson. But let me say first, thank you for being with us. Thank you for sharing your deeply personal story. I cannot imagine how difficult that must be. And thank you for your service. And I believe I understood you to say in your opening that you are presently a serving member. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And you are receiving some benefits by virtue of being a currently serving member. Just for the benefit of the committee, can you lay out for us what those benefits are? Maybe not. Okay.
Mrs. Thompson, can I, oh, you were frozen on our screen, and I wouldn't want to, so did you hear the questions from Mr. Casey?
No, ma'am, I didn't.
No. So I'll, and I'm wondering if, and I don't want to be disrespectful in any form, but maybe turning your camera off may help us, and I have to apologize for even requesting, but wait a second, I'll ask Mr. Casey to ask his question, and then as you answer, if you don't mind, ma'am, because I think that will help us with the connectivity this morning, and I sincerely apologize.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, Ms. Thompson, the two areas in which I want to focus my questioning are around the benefits that you receive by virtue of being a serving member, and what you are being denied by virtue of the determination that your husband's tragic death was unrelated to service. Can we start with the benefits that you are currently receiving by virtue of being a serving member?
I have received upwards of 50 sessions of therapy for myself due to the traumatic event of what happened. Any type of relaxation or anything that would help me is covered through the CAF. I was also fortunate to attend Wounded Warriors for their surviving families. And that was a week in Kingston that the CAF allowed me to go to out of work. And anything to do with mental health. With my career, I'm very open and honest because I have been through a traumatic experience where I'm not scared to lose my job to go in. The stigma isn't there for me within the CAF. And that's because like I experienced my spouse's decline with his mental health and no support and being fearful of what the actions were going to do for his job and his personal life. For me, I watched that happen, so I don't have that stigma. I will speak out that I was struggling and I continue to struggle. And back for my side has been there. This was the easy process, was my back. His Veterans Affairs is completely different. So for the forces, they are completely supportive. For me, my children don't get anything.
Okay. And am I to understand correctly that the reason for the complete disengagement by Veterans Affairs Canada is because there has been a determination that your husband's tragic death was not related to service? Is that right?
Yes, sir. D&D has ruled it that, yes, he was on duty, but his death is not service related.
Can you tell us a bit about the process that landed at that result? You say there was a board of inquiry?
Yeah. Yes, so there was a board of inquiry, a criminal investigation when he passed. They had 4 suspects that they had to rule out within the criminal investigation. Once the criminal investigation was done, D&D did a board of inquiry as it was on D&D property that it happened as well, and he was on active duty. They interviewed people from his first and second year of service, which he was the happy-go-lucky guy. He was always a smiling, would give you the shirt off his back. That is what they testified to. They never testified in the BOI for his last 5 years in the forces. Everything was prior to that. So all his deployments, the last 5 years that he'd passed, none of that was within the BOI. We are missing a deployment to Kuwait in 2021. All of his remedial measures are not in there. And once the Board of Inquiries deemed it non-service related, because they said that his deployments were uneventful. To be honest with you, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
They just gave me a summary of it. It did not include interviews with whoever they had interviewed. I'd sat in for 5 of those interviews, which were all speaking to Michael's personal life, not to his service. And then at the end, I was handed a brief summary of the BOI, which I have, and Veterans Affairs requested that. It took about 6 months for the Canadian Armed Forces to release it to VAC, and then I got the decision letter that it was a non-service related death.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. There's so much more I want to ask you, but I do want to pose a question to Captain LeChaleur. How much time do I have, Madam Chair? Less than a minute. Okay. Captain, thank you for your service. Thank you for your testimony. I know that much of your testimony spoke to your professional life and experience, but I've had the opportunity to read your very impressive bio on the Veterans Affairs website. If you're comfortable, could you talk a little bit about your experience in terms of your service and your story and your travails with PTSD, if you're comfortable?
Je dirais que j'ai eu une très bonne...
I could say that I had a very good career, many opportunities, and it was very interesting. Of course, Afghanistan was, there were many traumatic events of various natures. I had one incident there, a specific one that left damage that I didn't think was there at the outset when I went through it, you see. Coming back from Afghanistan, well, basically, it was neither understood nor recognized, the experience that I'd been through, what I'd experienced in Afghanistan. It was sort of set aside as being leaving my partner. My psychological distress wasn't necessarily linked to what I'd lived there, including sexual misdemeanors within the force. So it was basically ignored or not taken seriously. I was treated correctly, I would say, because I was sent for consultation. I received services and received medication, but it was never recognized fully the difficult experience I had in the Canadian Armed Forces. Thank you once again. Thank you very much. 6 minutes, Ms. Gaudreau. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'd like to continue in this vein. In your opening statement, I heard a number of words, institutional betrayal, feeling unheard. What I can say is that I find this shocking. I'm also embarrassed by this. I won't say more about what I feel. What do you think? I would say that institutions become a problem when they set aside their primary mission, which is to protect, to accompany, and to repair when that is necessary. They stop doing that when they are more concerned about procedures than they are by the person. When administrative issues are focused on and the person is not. And also when responsibility is laid on the shoulders of the person suffering. And where is the institution's responsibility in such situations? There are so much red tape, and others have spoken to this as well. There's the ever-present threat of cutting benefits. People forget to really evaluate the impact of policies, and it becomes a real moral wound and a lack of responsibility is what I've observed, lack of surveillance and monitoring of practices. Partnerships are announced, but there's not much follow-up evaluation of the effect of these undertakings or even accounting to see whether these approaches really improve veterans' lives. Without transparency, without follow-up, everyone loses trust in the process, and this leads to suicide. How can we overcome suicide if the system itself is contributing to the suffering that leads to it, especially women veterans, still too often invisible, are excluded 2 times over. They are facing a military culture that's still masculine, and their own specificities, physical and mental, are not adapted to. We can't offer nothing but clinical services. We need more. We need institutional repair. We need an ability to recognize wrongdoing. We need to be able to take responsibility for errors, evaluate the consequences of them, and bring in exemplary practices. I don't think we have them. I'd like to go back to the situation about the permanent memorial that I am involved in the 2nd of December, 2024. 2 clear requests were made by the prior Vice President of this committee, Mr. Desilets, directly to Mr. Stephen Harris. The requests were, first, to ensure that excuses, that it's an apology, come through, and second, to send to this very committee an explanation about what decision-making process had led to this error, the error of our names being on the monument. My question is, so where are we now? It's the 9th of October, 2025 now. Such errors are not merely embarrassing, they're actually traumatizing. And this one could have been avoided with more validation, more checking, and real responsibility and respect for those who were on the memorial. It's a matter of collective well-being. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. If an institution chooses to stand back, not get actively involved in repairing trauma and preventing it, and in remaining vigilant to prevent it, then they become a factor. And the responsibility for change must not be borne by fragile individuals. It must be taken on and lived by institutions with a duty to care, including care for women veterans who are still too often forgotten. That's very touching, Madam Chair. I think I have more than a minute and a half left. About women now, I'd like to know more about this because we have a bill regarding substituting the legal proceedings, for sexual assault claims, and we've had a witness come in and explain all that to us. So, do you have any examples of what this is about? If I understand correctly, you're asking a question about sexual misdemeanors. Yes, when it comes to female veterans, well, it's not as upfront, as not visible, because we don't have as many people who are still serving members around us, so we don't see directly what's going on now. I would say that it's not a simple situation, and the response in the field hasn't yet lived up to what has been requested. I'm sure that many women are still suffering in silence, and this should be dealt with. I've got 30 seconds. I will ask, as I did for the prior witnesses, what you would have to add and whether you feel heard as a woman. Thank you.
Our second round, Mr. Richards for 5 minutes.
Thank you, and thank you to both of you for, actually, do we still have our other witness with us? She may have, oh, she is still here. Okay, you disappeared from the screen. I thought maybe you had another computer issue, but thankfully that didn't happen. So thank you to both of you for being here. Ashley, if I may, it's been touched on just briefly a couple of times. You mentioned it in your opening, and I think in response on some questions about not being able to get any help from Veterans Affairs for yourself or your children. Like, thankfully, you do have what you need through the CAF, but obviously, if someone wasn't in your position, they wouldn't be getting help either, and your children aren't able to get help through Veterans Affairs. Can you tell me a little bit about your efforts to get help through Veterans Affairs and what that's looked like, and what I guess what kind of communication you've had from them in terms of why they aren't helping you and your children?
For sure. I opened up the MyVac, I would say probably 3 months after he passed. I was actually told by my DA from the military to do this. I put it through. I was automatically denied. They told me that it was not service related. I did tell them that we were doing a BOI and that when it was complete, they could have the BOI. During that, no benefits would be given until there was a decision made. The BOI was completed in February of 2024, so almost a year and a half after passing. And when I received that, I let them know that the colonel at the time told me that I was not allowed to give it to Veterans Affairs Canada, that Veterans Affairs Canada had to request it. I had let Veterans Affairs know that. They requested it, and again, it took months to get it from the CAF. During that time, I had communication with them on what benefits I could receive without a decision. They told me I could receive none. The way that they communicated through to me was through my VAC, which my personal VAC, and not my spouse's. And during that time, I'm still communicated to as a service member. When his VAC talks to me, I am a serving member. They don't look at me as a spouse. I am approached by my rank and my last name. And during this, I've asked them to stop addressing me like that. At this time, I am a spouse. This has nothing to do with my own personal Veterans Affairs. Since the decision of unfavorable had come out, I have now reached out to the Board of Appeals to have a court session. I'm not too sure on how that's going to go. This has just recently come up. to be honest with you, I just received an email this morning that said it is going to the Court of Appeals. Right now, I have it so that
Can I
the
just
Legion.
interrupt
Yep.
you for a second there? Because I'm trying to
For sure.
understand, so if I'm doing my math correctly, it's been about 3 years since your husband passed away, correct?
You are correct. We're
and
just past it.
and you started this process 3 months after he passed, so it's almost 3 years that you've been dealing with waiting for this, waiting for that, waiting for forms to go, being told no, then waiting for more forms.
Yes.
And now you're looking at doing an appeal, and that still hasn't. How long has that appeal been filed, and how long have you waited for that? Like I mean, let's just be. I'm just going to say it. 3 years is absolutely ridiculous. And
Yes, you are
I'm
not
trying
wrong.
to figure out how that was able to happen. So, like, where?
It was
So you're at with the
honestly-
appeal process now. How long have you been in that, and is there any hope there? I guess is the question.
It's 2 months that I've been waiting for my appeal. I do not have a date of when I will appear. I honestly hope that this time around they get to hear the full story of what happened and have the full documentation and paperwork to actually assess his service and not just go off of what the military BOI deemed appropriate at the time.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Thompson. Nous allons maintenant passer à Mr.
We will now hear from Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Madame la Sœur, merci pour être ici aujourd'hui.
And thank you, Captain Lefebvre.
Related to chronic pain, which is, as Mr. Casey asked you in the earlier round, obviously you have a tremendous amount of experience personally through your service, which we thank you for. But I'm curious, how does that play into your work now that you're doing with the Chronic Pain Center, and how much of an issue is chronic pain as it relates to the topic of suicide prevention, which is, of course, the nature of the study that we're undertaking right now?
Merci de la question.
Thank you for the question. A number of statistics have been shared during the meeting of the 2nd of October. They were shared then. I didn't want to go back over them here, but we do know that when it comes to women, the suicide rate is on the rise. At least in the most recent statistics, they showed that they were higher. Once again, it's difficult, and as I've said, finding a cause, identifying a cause is really frustrating because there's no single cause. But could we just put them all in a single basket and get a macro overview of how these issues could be addressed when it comes to the Center for Chronic Pain? I'm the Vice President of the Advisory Council, and our role is to provide advice on research priorities. From throughout the entire process, we're involved in identifying issues on the ground, realities that are not being addressed for a long time now. We've been trying to say openly that chronic pain is more prevalent among women than among men, and that's just within the last 5 years that's being discussed. And lived experience plays a crucial role in guiding how the organization will eventually fund research projects that will have a real effect on what veterans are living.
That and I guess chronic pain might be one of those issues that, as you alluded to, underreported and underappreciated, I guess, as a barrier for veterans and for serving members as well, I'm sure. But in your experience, how does the issue of chronic pain contribute to any difficulties that veterans may have in the transition to civilian life, which we know is always a challenge for veterans? But when you're adding on another layer of chronic pain, which can often be a lifetime issue, how does that make that transition more difficult, and how does your work try to smooth that out and make it easier for veterans to deal with that?
Question, en fait, si on...
Good question. considering military culture, the mindset, which is always one of pushing through, well, this leads people to tolerate pain and to work over and beyond their pain thresholds. What I see as a trend is that chronic pain is rarely, or at least very little, diagnosed during service. I mean, there's pain during service, but often it is chronic, but that won't be diagnosed until the person has left the serving ranks. This is something that we see quite a lot of. So in the data shared by the Canadian Armed Forces doesn't necessarily show that chronic pain is present in serving members. There are figures. As I've just said earlier, chronic pain will often be diagnosed once the member leaves active service. I, for example, was wounded in Afghanistan. There was, my vehicle exploded and my sacrum was blown apart. That was certainly trauma. But from 2007 till I was released in 2017, I was provided only with physiotherapy. As for the pain, well, that's how it was addressed without it necessarily being called chronic pain subsequent to the accident.
Thank you for that. And we've heard from previous witnesses in other meetings about the stoic culture within the armed forces, and that sometimes being a bit of a double-edged sword, where there's obviously wonderful things about that, but on the other hand, as you mentioned, sometimes it can lead to people thinking that we're just going to soldier on, no pun intended, and carry on, and sometimes that can be exacerbate itself over time, and you get to a position that's more difficult than it otherwise could or should probably be. So, how much? No, out of time. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Je suis vraiment désolée, Capitaine Le Seller.
I'm so sorry, Captain Le Seller retired.
Minute pour Madame Gaudreau.
We have 2.5 minutes for Ms. Gaudreau. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Let me go back to what we were discussing in the last round. You mentioned a request. And what do you expect in response? And where is the request? I mean, where is the file of the 2nd of December 2024 request? You'd like an answer to that, right? Yes, of course I would. So we should undertake, Madam Chair, to get an answer to that. What do you think? And public apologies and an explanation as to why this took place. I'd like to hear you because you are a member of the Veterans Council at Veterans Affairs Canada. And do you feel heard there, respected there? What's it like? Thank you for the question. It was an honor, of course, to be asked to sit as a member on the Veterans Council, the purpose of which is to advise the minister directly. Yes, I would say that we are respected and taken seriously by our support personnel. But beyond that, well, it remains to be seen. When it comes to government-level management, we are not respected. We don't have tools, and we're not taken seriously as much as a council at the ministerial level should be. We've been fighting for 2 years now merely to have enough elbow room to make good on our mandate. We have no budget. We have no dedicated resources. We have no access to the minister whom we're supposed to be advising, and no real voice to have an effect. The mandate of the council about women veteran is still it has no teeth. We are symbolic. We look great on the photos. Unfortunate. When it comes to preventing suicide, feeling isolated and useless and that we aren't recognized, these themselves are risk factors for suicidality. Within the council itself, we hear that people are experiencing episodes that point to deteriorating mental health. So the role should be to ensure that there's better communication between women, veterans, and the system. But without the resources to do so, we feel that our hands are tied. It's very difficult to be sure that we count, that we are valuable. The last report was entitled Never Again Invisible, but I can tell you that we are still invisible. So this brings our second round to an end. Once again, I would like to thank you for your services. Thank you for being so candid in your testimony here with us this morning.
Are away, and as a serving member, thank you for your service, ma'am. I know this was difficult, but thank you for that courage. Et Capitaine Le Selleur, merci d'être avec nous ce matin.
And Captain Le Selleur, retired, thank you for being with us today. Our next meeting will take place on Tuesday, the 21st of October. We will have an information briefing with the Minister of Veterans Affairs, as well as with civil servants from her department. I would like to wish all of you a happy...
Be sharing some family time, but as we are hearing some of the people who are in front of us, there's still a lot of grief and sadness in our veterans community. So for all the veterans watching, on behalf of all of us, we are here for you, and certainly we'll see you soon. Merci.
Thank you.